Guys were kind of hard men, for want of a better phrase, in those days. And I look at some of the guys today, and I think they're spoilt little brats, perhaps with rich daddies, and they don't.
Yeah, but
they don't know how lucky they are.
Yeah, but we had spoilt little brats like that with rich daddies or what have you. Then
They were still really putting their necks on the line, weren't they?
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, there were quite a lot of guys who come along and scratch some money together, and they get a decent car, and they go around and start money specials. So they go to a certain race, and they give them 200 quid to start, and they get there, and the thing would break. I mean, they would go around at the back. They were always part and parcel of the sort of circus. I mean, much more sophisticated now, no doubt.
And another word that always springs to mind, and I think a lot of the punters out there, a lot of the people who watch Formula One must be saying to themselves, these guys are brave. And I know we've talked about this in the past. Bravery isn't. You don't think is a factor. It's not a quality in Formula One, is it?
Bravery, you see, bravery and stupidity are quite often the same thing. I mean, you do something, people say it's brave, well, it quite often is stupid.
Absolutely.
And I don't think there's much room for stupidity in racing. That's for sure. No, I think that if you have to use bravery in racing, then you're being stupid. If you can't go round a corner. Now, there were times, I must admit, where I required, I suppose one could say, bravery, because I'm overcoming a fear, which is what I suppose it is. And I go into a corner and think, well, Christ, I want to be a bit quicker. And it's very, very difficult not to give what we call a confidence lift. In other words, you ease back. You wouldn't know I'd done it, but I know I'm slightly off. My toes aren't quite as long as they should be, and it isn't flat. If you go round a corner, and there are some you come to when you say, God, I got around that, and I've still got a few inches left on the outside. I could have been a bit quicker. And then you come in the next lap, 2 miles later, and still your foot pulls back, and you don't want it to, and you're sort of, and it requires enormous concentration and great control of your mind, I suppose, really, to say, right, it's going to stay there. And so I suppose that's the nearest I ever got to courage, really. But
And what about being scared? I mean,
that happened.
I think
if you aren't scared, what's your limit? You see, I mean, I can tell you, I had a threshold of fear, which is much closer now than it was then, obviously, when I was younger and so on. But my threshold of fear, wherever it was, one could move it, and it would depend on on what the surroundings are. In other words, if you go over a mountain in the Alps and there's a precipice like that, I bet you go a bit slower than if you happen to be a nice runoff on the field. Well, you shouldn't really. If the thing will stay on the road like this, whether there's a field there or a precipice doesn't make any damn difference, does it, to the road holding? But you've got to convince yourself that precipice is actually a field that you can run off onto. And being able to control your mind and do these things does require quite a lot of control.
And the other thing I think you said to me once before is that fear comes into play. You get scared when you're a passenger, as it were. What was that? You were in, I think, a Maserati when something broke.
Oh, you mean when something happens to the... Yeah, well, I mean, I was going around the banking at Monza at about 160, 165 in this thing called the Eldorado Special. And so I'm like this, holding... when you're on a banking, it goes up like this, it's like being on the straight, except that you've got the banking to help you. So you're not cornering that much, right? But you are a bit, because it's, you're going around there. And I'm going like this, holding this thing down, and suddenly my arms crossed. Now, I'm not stupid. I knew something was wrong. I mean, it shouldn't have happened like that. And what had happened was the steering had sheared, and therefore my hands had just done this because it wasn't attached. And the car, because of the centrifugal force, went up to the top and hit the armco and knocked the poles out and so on. And I must say, I closed my eyes, put my foot on the brake. I wasn't frightened at the moment, because you suddenly think, oh God, it's self-preservation. But as soon as you get over that, then the fear comes in. Your stomach feels as though you've got a great soggy piece of suet in it. It sort of goes down, and your hands get funny. And
sickening sort of feeling.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never been literally physically sick with fear, although I think some people have. But it's certainly, it gives you a great feeling of the value of life, and I think it makes you a believer.
So why do people do it? People put their neck on the line, and let's not forget, although it's got much safer these days, let's not forget Ayrton, of course. Let's not forget Roland Ratzenberger.
Tragic, of course.
Yeah, and let's not forget a lot of people in other forms of motorsport. Paul Warwick, some.
Why do they do it? I'll tell you why you do it. Because the payoff, and I don't mean financial, the personal exhilaration is enormous. If you can go into a corner and you've got a really good driver behind you, somebody really hot, and you can go around that corner and pull out a few feet in front of him, by God, you feel like $1 million. It's something you can't put a price on it.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is, you know, I'm sure when you put a ball past Boris Becker to win the final at
Yeah, you
Wimbledon,
must feel good.
or you score that goal at the FA Cup final, I'm sure the exhilaration is just as great for those guys, isn't it?
Yeah.
So why not play it a lot
So I
safer?
can't play football. I mean, you know, it's to each his own. If I could have the hand of God in football, I'm sure I'd be doing that, you know. But no, the point is that in every game, I think I'm sure to a man who plays cricket, that lovely click and the ball goes up there and lands, it must be an enormous exhilaration.
Yeah. But there seems something, you know, in motorsport, it's something over and above that. It's almost an obsessional thing.
You know why? Yes, but because your life, if you miss the thing, and when you're going to make that hole in one, the damn thing just runs around the cup. You haven't just missed the hole. You're fighting for your bloody life, going off. And then you realise, my God, I bet too much on that. The point is, your right foot is the throttle and these are your hands. And the skill that you have and the understanding and knowledge and the interpretation of the corner, all that is, you have it called experience. And it says, look, you can go around here, you can try that a little bit harder. And if you do, you are going to risk a bit more, and you know it. I mean, you're not a fool. You don't just go in and try. And you say, Christ, well, now, if I do lose it on this corner, there's a tree there, and so if I hit that tree, I could be dead. And that is when it really that is when it gives you an amazing, amazing buzz.